Okay, guys, time for the third strategy, completing the square. Okay, and I wrote something that's important that you do know how to do this. There will be a problem in which you must complete the square. The reason I'm doing this is because a few of the things we need in future chapters in this class is we need to know how to complete the square. Okay, so make sure that you do know how to do that. Other than that, I don't care. You can do these problems any way you want, whatever's easiest, but there will be one in which you must complete the square. Okay, now the idea behind completing the square is we're getting it into the form for what we did in the second strategy where we can just take square roots. That's the whole thing. We're going to make it a perfect square so we can just take square roots of both sides. Okay? That's the whole idea. We turn it into something we know the square root of. So let me show you this first one. Now, this is one we know how to do. Very easy with the zero product property. X squared minus 7x plus 12. I just factored, and I got 4 and 3. So if you see this on the test, by all means, I would suggest using the zero factor. It's the quickest. But since it's a simple one, that's how I want to show you how to complete the square in this first case. Now, so there's a process to this. What we're going to do is I'm going to start by writing my equation, and I'm going to get the constant over to the other side like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a blank in 2 spots. Why? Well, if I add some value here on the left-hand side of the equation, I have to do the same on the right-hand side. Now, what am I going to add? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the negative 7. I'm going to divide it by 2, so I get negative 7 over 2, and then I'm going to square it. That is your general process with this. So if I add 49 over 4 here, I have to add 49 over 4 here. So what good did that do? Well, what you'll notice is if you were to factor this, okay, what it'll come out to is exactly this. X minus 7 over 2, quantity squared. So x minus 7 over 2 times x minus 7 over 2. Okay, because 7 over 2 times 7 over 2 is 49 over 4. When you add them, you get negative 7. Here's the easy way to remember, though. See the negative 7 halves right here? That always matches what I have right here. Little trick to help you, okay? Now over here, negative 12 is negative 48 over 4. If I add it to 49 over 4, that's going to be 1/4. So notice what I've done is I've gone through and I've turned this into one of those square root problems, the problems where we take the square roots, like the second strategy. Now I can take square roots, and I definitely don't want to be forgetting my plus or minus. So I'm right here. Okay. Well, the question is, what's the square root of 1/4? Well, 1/2. So x minus 7 halves equals plus or minus 1/2. Well, I got to get x by itself, so I guess I'm adding 7 halves to both sides. So I'm right here. Is this the same thing that we got before? Well, let's think about it. If I take 7 halves and I add 1/2, that'd be 8 halves or 4. If I take 7 halves and subtract 1/2, that'd be 6 halves or 3. That's the same thing we got earlier, okay? So yes, this was harder for this one, but now we got the mechanics down for something that's a little harder right here. Now, the reason I want to do this one, so let's get this set up. Negative 2x squared plus 4x plus blank equals negative 3 plus blank. Hopefully you're okay there. To complete the square, this isn't going to work out unless this number in front of x squared, this coefficient, is a 1. So how are we going to do that? We're going to factor the negative 2 out. So I'm going to factor negative 2 out. I get x squared minus 2x, right? Because negative 2x times negative 2 is 4x, plus blank. Okay, so this is the extra special thing you got to do when you don't just have a 1 here. Now, when I do that, whatever I put in this blank gets multiplied by negative 2. So if that's true, what do I got to do over here? That also has to get multiplied by a negative 2. So that's what makes these a little bit tougher when you don't just have a coefficient of 1 out front there. Other than that, the strategy is going to be the same. Divide it by 2 and square it. and put it right here. And you'll notice that this factors once again exactly as x minus 1 squared, whatever number's here. And I got this negative 2 out here, so I don't want to forget about that. This is equal to negative 3 plus negative 2, which we know that is negative 5. Okay, so before I take square roots, let's take care of that negative 2. Divide both sides by negative 2 so that we get x minus 1 squared is equal to 5 halves. And now I'm ready to take square roots. X minus 1 is equal to the square root of 5 over 2. And that's really plus or minus square root of 5 over 2. Okay. So that means x equals 1 plus or minus. And I'm going to write root 5 over root 2. And if you remember from your algebra, you don't like square roots in the bottom, so I'm actually going to fix that by multiplying by square root of 2 over square root of 2. So we're going up here. X equals 1 plus or minus. This is root 10 up top over 2 on bottom. Okay. I think in the back of the book they combine into a single fraction. You don't have to do that. So I would write the answer as 1 plus root 10 over 2 and 1 minus root 10 over 2. So that's completing the square, guys.